Mm, Perfect. Yeah, so when I talk about roots, I talk about our ancestors, right? And usually I go back into my relationship with money. It's never about numbers. It's all about memories, emotions, and moments that shaped me, shaped us. And for me, that journey, it takes me back to Venezuela and how, my childhood was up to that point where this president got elected and everything started
Mhm.
changing in my family, started changing, with the relationship of my parents, all the chaos. And at the same time, moments that I see, oh, okay, that's where certain belief is rooted in. That's where that memory took me to think that maybe I have to work like really hard or you know, um, I don't trust myself with money because my parents maybe they were scared to just give me even a little bit because they had very little bit at that time, right? So um, at the same time, that created a lot of resilience too, right? And over time, I discovered that okay, if I ask myself these questions, I can find where those roots are and what I can do with them. And I'm just curious if you ever went back into your own Lobsterbird, into your own, ancestry history, and what do you find there? Like what certain beliefs around money you found?
Hmm. Yes, the answer is yes, often and a lot. Have I traveled?
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of us at this time, a lot of us who incarnated on this earth at this time are really
Mm-hmm.
here to do the deep ancestral healing work. And
Mm-hmm.
so much of that has to do with money because there's so much
Mm-hmm.
intergenerational trauma around money that's been passed down literally through our DNA. And
Mm-hmm.
so it is such a huge part of the work. And I can share a little bit about my background. Is that helpful? And kind of some of the
Yes, please, please, because I don't even know if you were born here. Were you born here in North America?
So I
Or
was born here. I
okay.
half of a first generation immigrant. So
Okay.
as the name Lobsterbird suggests, I come
Okay.
and one of them is my mother's world. She is an immigrant from Korea. And Korea has a tremendously complicated history.
Mm-hmm.
It's situated between China and Japan. It was constantly fought over and conquered, and
Mm-hmm.
there's a lot of oppression that happened within those people, and then also so much strength that also happened as well. And so, my mother coming over here was a whole redoing of her whole generational,
Yes.
struggle because she grew up really, really poor, like the kind of, have to walk 5 miles to the well with her brother on her back without proper shoes, kind of poor.
Wow.
And this is in post-war Korea, right, which was a place of
Mm-hmm.
great devastation and suffering. And so that's her side.
Mm-hmm.
Until she met my father, who was stationed in Korea in the army, and that's how they met. She didn't speak any English, but they met at a dance, and her best friend translated that whole night, and they fell in love. And
Oh my goodness, that's a movie.
it is totally a movie. A few months later, or however long it took my dad to get back, actually, he asked his parents, and they were like, "No, absolutely not. Like, you're not gonna bring
Oh.
this person over." Back then, there was still a lot of prejudice and racism. I mean, there still is now, right? But I mean, their hearts softened. My grandparents were amazing people, and my
Mm.
grandfather actually had a Japanese girlfriend when he was stationed in Hawaii,
Mm.
for the military. So there's that ancestral piece of like bridging worlds, and so he brought her over, and that for her was her turning point, in
Mm-hmm.
shifting that whole lineage. And then we
Right.
have my father's side, who, they're French and English, a couple generations removed from these lands here. And still, being white folks in
Mm-hmm.
America, grew up in from really humble beginnings as well. My grandfather actually was a hobo. He used to ride the trains across the country.
Wow.
And then, like my grandmother's side and his side too, worked in like chicken factories and then eventually started working in like kitchens of hotels. And then eventually my grandfather started working a trade. So he became a plumber. And
Okay.
that was kind of the shift in that lineage because then my
Mm-hmm.
father adopted that same trade and eventually became an entrepreneur and started his own business. So, my parents were doing the work before I came into the picture,
Yeah.
which I'm really grateful for, and I also want to acknowledge in this conversation, that I come from very dual sides of privileged and oppressed, that
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
dichotomy,
Yeah.
and so for me in this lifetime, really what has been a lot of healing of both of those dynamics need a tremendous amount of healing.
Yeah. That's what I was
The
going to
oppressor and the
say.
oppressed. Yeah, and that's because our whole money system relies on those power dynamics as well.
Mm-hmm.
Currently, wow, I just got so excited. I'm just not,
Microphone. It was so
I'm
perfect.
destroying the system like with my microphone. But yeah, so for then me growing up, there was so much in there. I mean, there was so much in there that was being worked through from a very young age because they were working through it in real time. And the
Yeah, I can imagine because
yeah.
two worlds and how your mom and your dad happen to, find the middle ground, basically.
Mhm. Exactly.
Yeah.
And both of them coming from these humble beginnings and making a whole new life out of that, with
Mm-hmm.
and you were asking about pivotal memories, and one of the ones I had, so my mother had many money mantras. They were not the kind that most people use
Oh.
today. They're not like how were like things that she would repeat, but weren't necessarily positive
Beneficial.
or like yeah, she got from somewhere else. And one of them was always, actually from a young age, she encouraged us to save. She was really good with money. So when my dad started his business,
Mm.
actually, she learned from my grand. She didn't speak any English. She learned by watching my grandmother how to write checks and manage a checkbook. So by the time he started
Wow.
his business, yeah, she was really like, running the money show behind the scenes,
Mm.
encouraging us to save, but she would always say, money doesn't grow on trees. And
Oh.
it's
Mm-hmm.
interesting because we grew up bordering a forest. And so I was always out there, like playing in nature and experiencing abundance. And then eventually in my life, I learned permaculture. I've been studying permaculture. I practice it all the time.
Mm.
And so, coming from this really true and decolonial viewpoint, because it really permaculture comes from indigenous peoples and viewpoints and
Mm-hmm.
practices. And so, coming from there, I realized like money actually does grow on trees in so many ways. Like it's made of trees,
Yes.
paper, one for one. So, like that was something
Yes.
I had to really, right? It actually grows on trees.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And at the same time, it's so interesting because, I was saying when we talk about money, it's not only the actual number, but the memories and all that, but also the energy and its nature. It comes from a tree, it comes from, it's alive, you know?
Exactly.
So it is that it's a lot of the energy that we are,
Yeah.
how we are relating with the money energetically too. So,
Exactly. And then the second part of that, though, is that like most of us were conditioned and raised with this dysfunctional relationship with nature,
mm-hmm, mm-hmm, exactly.
particularly when it comes to permaculture and like growing one's own food and living with and off the land, actually, like, like if we're thinking about like reforesting, right? Like these things,
Right?
or growing our own food,
Mm-hmm.
like a couple billionaires could literally feed the world with permaculture, And so
Absolutely.
the fact that she was saying like money doesn't grow on trees, it's like, yeah, actually, we just need to totally redo our relationship with nature because we can be totally abundant if we're relating with it in a
Yeah,
different way,
and
right?
it's
And so for me,
cyclical.
that's yeah, it's a metaphor to the money system, right? If we start to relate to it more on these kinds of principles of sacred reciprocity, right? And like regeneration and all of these other things, money actually does grow on trees. Like they can print it whenever they want, or the US
Mm-hmm,
government
mm-hmm,
whenever they
mm-hmm.
want. So anyway, undoing
Yeah,
that in myself was a big activation to how I healed that whole relationship.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and what of those memories? Well, you mentioned that yeah, your mom had like that mantra, it doesn't grow on trees, and of course, I see the power of understanding everything has as a circle, right? Like yes, of course, once we grow the tree, we harvest, then we can turn it into money, and then we can just do it all over again. But what was for you that moment of transformation? Like, okay, I got this, and from now on, thank you, ancestors, thank you, mom, thank you, dad. From now on, it's going to be different. What was that moment for you, or what happened in your life? What was happening in your life, and that if you go back into that memory?
Yeah, well, so, because of my upbringing, I always worked super hard. Like, I started working when I was 12. I got my first job babysitting.
Whoa.
This is kind of funny story is actually is that I went for the interview, like I was 12, there was two little kids, and they asked me how much I wanted to get paid. And I was so young, like I had
Mm,
no conception,
yeah.
like I don't know, there's two kids, $2 an hour. And I went back to my mom and she was like, "So what happened?" And I was like, "Well, I got the job." And she's like, "How much are they paying you?" And I was like, $2 an hour. And she was like, "That's terrible." And I was like, I don't know. I didn't expect them to ask me. So since
That's
then, I've kind of
exactly a 12-year old doing bad business.
been like a lot.
Oh my goodness.
So I now understand like my worth, and how to budget more properly.
Course.
But yeah, I worked really hard all my life, and I've gone through like various times in my life where like I've made a
Mm-hmm.
lot of money, or like I didn't know how to
Mm.
make it. I was an artist in New York City for a decade. That was a very volatile
Whoa.
time. But the main incident really that was a turning point for me is that I was actually at the height of my artistic career. I was
Mm-hmm.
doing performance work in robotics, and this Japanese avant-garde art form called Buto is very obscure.
Mm-hmm.
Most people have never heard of it. It came after World War II. It's very grotesque and wild, and it's really like a shamanic theatrical experience.
Oh,
Yeah, and
I
I was
love
doing
that.
robotics with that, and there was only one other person in the world doing that, and he invited me to come to Japan, and we had this incredible like performance exhibit at basically the Modern Museum of Arts in Tokyo. It was like the apex of my
Whoa.
career. And my partners and I, we were getting all these grants and all this attention. I got invited by like the famous roboticist in Tokyo to come, work with androids. Like, I mean, it was like huge.
Yeah.
And then, and I write about this, I'm just going to touch on this story, but if anyone wants to hear the full
Please.
story, I write about this in my book, Phase Out, The Secret Guide to Finding Work That Frees Your Soul. It's like part memoir and part like adventure manual for the reader, where you go through your own personal journey to find the
Yes.
work meant for you. But on this path, I ended up on an accidental pilgrimage to Korea. So to my ancestral homelands, which by the way, my mother
Oh.
was born in Japan, in Osaka. It's complicated. So here I am in Japan. And then suddenly my friend was like, "You have to go. It's right over there." And I was like,
Yes.
I was not planning on going. But I ended up going, and like my actual blood family wasn't even there. And so I was with my cousin's husband and like my mother's brother's sister. Like they were like extended family. And they most of them didn't speak any English, so I could hardly communicate. And they fed me so much, like food, but also like in my soul, and it just like
Yeah.
it was also eating so much that I feel like it had nowhere to go except like out my eyeballs. So I was like crying all the time because I realized through that experience, like this is what unconditional love feels like, to be so
Oh,
nourished, fed, right, in this overflow, in this
exactly.
abundance.
It's a love language.
Yeah, they're doing all these things. And I realized
Mhm.
everywhere in my life that I did not have that, and it was pretty much everywhere. And so that catalyzed this disillusion of every area of my life, including my work, including my partnership, including my finances, including everything that literally imploded, and including my body. So I was
Mm.
paralyzed on the floor for 2 weeks after that. And then that ended up through a weird wormhole, meeting up with my two friends afterwards, and they were like, "Okay, you have to go on this other pilgrimage now." So I ended up going on a second pill because I had no work, I had no life, like I had nothing. So they literally gave me a book and a hat and a stick, and they were like, just get on this night bus, you'll be fine. And I went on this pilgrimage in Japan,
Mm-hmm.
and the seminal moment was that I was walking through this rice field. And
Mm-hmm.
I went during the rainy season, so there was also like no other pilgrims on this very like famous
Whoa.
just me, which ended up being perfect. But I could see all around me. It was like all rice fields, and it was so hot. I
Mm.
was so sweaty. My knee was injured. There was like mosquitoes everywhere, and it looked like the Matrix because it was like rice field patties. You know, it was
Yes. Uh-huh.
as far as the eye could see. And I thought, like, I have no idea where I'm going, if I'm even going in the right direction, like where
Oh
I'll sleep.
my God.
Yeah, I'm like thirsty. Like, what do I do? I might die here. I was like, literally, I might die here.
Yeah.
And then I was like right in the middle of the race field, and it felt like I got struck by a lightning bolt. Like it was not raining, there was no lightning, but I felt like I did. And suddenly I looked all
Mm.
around me and had the realization that none of this is actually real. Like this is
Mm.
actually the Matrix, and it doesn't
Mm.
even matter, like
Yes.
direction I go in, And
Mm-hmm.
I
Mm-hmm.
started laughing and crying simultaneously, hysterically
Oh
on my
my
knees
God.
rice field. And I will tell you that that was the moment that changed everything because from there, actually, like I said, I lost everything and I ended
Mm.
up like basically being a nomadic pilgrim for over 7 years, like kind of
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
following my soul's calling. And, like I wasn't, like I didn't really have a job that anyone could, pinpoint. And I was just living. And so I realized there's this polarity that a lot of us have to find that liminal space and that secret third thing,
Mm-hmm.
having nothing and
Mm-hmm.
having everything, you know? And I
Yes.
realized from that place of nothingness, this is the empty, fertile space where everything is possible, right? So from here, I get to choose, and I'm going to follow my heart and my soul until, that thing speaks to me that I know is truth, that I know that's for me. And then I also know that the money will come along, and it always did through those 7 years, like I had no plan really.
Yeah. Yeah.
But eventually, during that point, within that time, I met this woman. She was a coach. I was making, I think it was like $11 an hour working in construction on a Buddhist temple in Colorado. We're fast forwarding.
Okay.
And I started working with her. I was paying her $2,500 a month, which was huge for me. Like,
Mm-hmm.
like I didn't have that. But I just was like, I'd never worked with a coach before. I had never like did really. I'd done a little money work. Yeah, I think I'd already started to do, my deep like healing money work.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, but it was just a yes. And so I started working with her, and then
And that was
um,
after, sorry, but that was after going on your pilgrimage.
yeah, and then a few years of like nothingness and
Okay. 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 Like
total.
sabbatical time.
Yeah, most people would say, like, including my parents, actually, many times, would say, like, you're a mess, like, you can't live here. So what are you gonna do, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I just did. I followed the next step, and eventually, this is like several years later, led me to this woman. Started working with her. She encouraged me. She was like, "What?" Like we did some kind of meditation, and she was like, "What is
Mm-hmm.
calling forth for you to birth into this world?" And I was like,
Mm-hmm.
"Virtual pilgrimages." And she was like, "Whoa, what's that?" And I was like, "I have no idea." And she was like, "Then you have to do it." And I was like, "I don't, I don't think I can. It's not a thing, But I did it, because that's what we do, right? We have a
Whoa.
calling. And from there, I had a very successful coaching business for many, many years, making over six figures, And so again, like that moment in the rice field catalyzed this epic realization that turned out to be
Mm-hmm.
true. So then I lived with like, oh, like I can generate so much money, energy, et cetera, et cetera.
Yes.
Right? But eventually the pendulum swinging, right, has to come to that fertile space in the middle. And I feel like that's where I'm at now. But it all originated in that rice field, hysterically going kind of insane, and then
That's
recognizing the nature
incredible.
of the universe.
That's incredible. It reminds me a little bit to what I felt in doing the ayahuasca. It's like,
Hmm.
oh my God, problems are not problems. Oh my goodness. It's just that feeling of, as you said, like this is just an illusion. We are creating these problems and we can just find the solution is right here, it's on our hands. And
Right.
that's,
Something will
yeah.
happen, and we have an active role in co-creating what that happening is.
Exactly. Yeah, that's an amazing story, and I love how your parents also started to be an entrepreneur. So you have that as well. Like you saw them doing that. So then it was for you also a place that, yeah, as you said, it was a fertile ground as well for you to be like, okay, I can do this. Being on
Mhm.
your own, so alone and yeah and finding now where are you at, what is that you're doing now, what is your offering to the world, if you can tell us a little bit more about that.
I can, as you know, I am what I call a wealth embodiment activist. Um,
Hmm.
Adriana and I work together in this amazing
Yes.
collective called the Vortex Collective, Vortex Financial. And within that, many, many times, like I can't even begin to tell you the whole arc of everything that happened from the rice field to this moment.
Yeah.
But in my coaching practice, my healing practice, I've
Hmm.
always been an educator and an artist and a
Hmm.
writer and a speaker,
Hmm.
like and all these things. Ended up weaving them together in this really sacred work that we're doing, and that
Hmm.
has become my form of activism because I've always
Hmm.
been, ever since I was little, like a social activist at heart. I wanted a better
Hmm.
world where everyone is happy and everyone is thriving. And I believe wholeheartedly we can create that despite how it
Yeah.
looks. And so, I've been doing this work, and several years ago, it occurred to me, that the place where we're at collectively, like a lot of
Hmm.
people have been doing their meditation, their spiritual work, their healing work. But what we all need right now is the embodiment piece, right? A lot of people are also coming really into
Absolutely.
doing deep trauma work, right? Which
Hmm.
trauma lives in the body, eh?
Hmm.
But two, if we are doing the wealth building work, that also lives in the body. Right. And so this embodiment work has been my focus for the past several years. I believe it's the key. We're being literally gifted all of these wealth codes right now. We have the gift
Hmm.
of the internet, and all of these tools and all of these things that are accessible to us right now. And what we really need to do is bring all of that spiritual and healing practice that's all up here, right? It's all kind of etheric, the mental, emotional, spiritual, energetic work
Yes.
down into the body. And
Hmm.
so, I teach that work as crucial because our energy is everything. Energy is everything. We're 99.9999999% energy.
That's
And so
right.
we learn how to use that and be that, right? That's how we see miracles and magic happen. And also, it is like that's the basis of it, right? If we're not doing that work and we're trying to do the practical stuff, we're gonna butt up against all of this stuff that's embedded in our systems, that we really
Hmm.
work out. But then the other side of that, right, again, we're looking at the polarities and finding that
Hmm.
secret third thing, is the practical side of it. And so that's what we do in Vortex. We do conscious financial planning. It's trauma informed, holistic planning that honestly,
Hmm.
like, I haven't seen anyone else do anywhere else remotely close to how we're doing it. And so that's the very practical side of it because if you
Yep.
want to change your financial situation, you need to do something practical and you need a plan. Hope is
Absolutely.
not hope is
That's
not a
the earth. That's how
Mhm.
you get rooted. All that
Exactly.
creation, that magic, that those miracles get rooted that
Right.
way.
And that's an embodiment too, right? A
Hmm.
financial plan is an embodiment of what you're creating financially, right? Your body is the
Hmm.
embodiment of all of the things that you've experienced and the person you're becoming, right? In this lifetime.
Hmm.
So for me, I'm bridging both of those, both through our work of, bringing people these incredible financial strategies that are literally transforming people, and also, by the way, are free.
Hmm.
Our
Hmm.
business system is so incredibly dynamic and intricate and based in spiritual principles. And it's like there's so much possibility within it. So right now I'm really like calling forth the next generation of healers and coaches and somatic practitioners and all the people that know how to hold space for someone when their money trauma comes up. Because that's
Hmm.
like the first thing we have to work
It's so
with.
needed.
Yeah, and then also can learn how to do what I call math and magic, you know? If
I love that.
There's like no, like if someone had told me several years ago, you're going to be a financial professional, I would have laughed and like ran off into the woods and
Same.
like ate some mushrooms. Yeah, like there was not, it was like not in my thing. And so if I can do this and if you can do this, anyone can do this. And I feel like there's so many of us in Vortex who are similar. We have all these shamans and astrologers and healers and all these things. And so us coming together is this form of wealth activism that I was talking about because
Hmm.
honestly, money equals power in our current
Right.
society. So those who have tremendous wealth get to make decisions for the rest of the people, and I am
Hmm.
over that. You're
Hmm.
over that, right? We're all
Absolutely.
they're
It
making
is the
terrible
time.
decisions, right? So when we move from that intergenerational trauma into generational wealth and we start building that in our lifetimes, we're able to steward that for our families, for our communities, for
Hmm.
our projects that are going to make the world better, right? Like there's
Yeah.
so much we'll be able to do. And so my most efficient, effective way of creating social change is by getting y'all out there wealthy AF,
Hmm. Hmm.
so that you can use those resources, right, to help others.
Yeah, I love that. And I'm gonna add all the links, all the information in the description so you guys can see Lobsterbird and all that we're doing here in Vortex. So, and yeah, that's been the the route for me to take to make all those moves, even these podcasts, right? Just to bring all that knowledge to everyone. And yeah, all the resources that we have. And of course the stories that inspire you because a lot of us here are so mixed up, right? I have Latin background, I have also our stories of, survival, same with Korea and other parts of the world. Thank you so much. I love that story about the rice field. That's gonna be in me for quite a while. And yeah, to finish up, I want to ask you to give everyone, if you could gift one root and one wing, which root means something that it will anchor you, and wing, it will be wings, it will be something that it will help you from now on to maybe close up that survival instinct or feeling and just move on to the next generation, the what we're looking for, how you're gonna take off and make your magic for you and for the next generation, what will that be?
Well, so of course, as a lobster bird, I have two answers. And so I would love to address this as I talked about from the metaphysical side and
Yes,
also practical side. Is that okay?
love it. Yes.
So, starting with the metaphysical, I would actually invite us all, anyone listening, Adriana, if
Mm-hmm.
you can, if you're not driving, to close your eyes for a moment, for a few moments, and take a few deep breaths to this activating conversation, breathing in everything you've heard, exhaling and letting it go, and continuing to breathe really deeply, like taking the biggest, juiciest breaths you've taken today. Because, like, receiving on the inhale, imagine receiving the abundance, receiving the wealth codes. And as you exhale, you're exhaling any of the old trauma or stories or et cetera, on every inhale and exhale, and continue to do that. And while you do that, bringing some attention and awareness up to source, God, universe, however you kept conceptualize, there's something out there. And even if you're atheist, right, there's light. So imagine there's this source of light above the crown of your head, all the way up past the atmosphere, the cosmos, up into the ethers. And there's this glorious source of light that's flowing down to you and through you and all around you as if you're in a waterfall of liquid light. So it's pouring down through your center and in your body into all your cells. And it's also pouring around you like you're in this shower of light. And so as you breathe and you breathe in the abundance, the wealth, seeing how much more you can hold, and then exhaling those old stories, experiences, conditioning, etc. And this light is helping to facilitate that movement. And so I'm going to go through this real quick. Normally, this is a bit of a longer practice, but just imagine that that light is flowing down through the crown of your head, down your central channel. So, right down your crown and then down out through your root, through the bottom of your torso. And if you're familiar doing chakra work, as it's going through your crown, you can bring it out your third eye. Make sure you do it the front and back, the throat, the heart, the solar plexus, the sacral, down out the root. And it's also flowing down through your whole body, like so that it's flowing down through your torso and down through your legs, your knees, your calves, your shin, your feet, out your toes, and out the bottom of your feet. So all this light is flowing down through you and then down through your chair and through your floor and through the ground, through the soil, through all the layers of the earth, the rocks, the water tables, the lava. And you want this light to go all the way from source through you down to the heart of Mother Earth, which is this matrix of unconditional love and infinite co-creation, and seeing if you can feel what that feels like to be loved that much that you were brought onto this planet by this energy. And this energy has been feeding you since the moment you were born. And so imagine that energy from the heart of Mother Earth floating all the way back up through the lava, the water tables, the rocks, the soil, the ground, the floor, the chair, up through your root and up into your heart, where the light from above and below meet. They collide like a starburst, 360 all around you, surrounding you in this light, protecting you and holding you. This is like the cocoon of your growth. So we have rooted energetically, right, into our earth beingness. We're also like rooting from source down into our bodies and into the earth, right? So this is the metaphysical root. And now those energies are coming forth from our heart, protecting us, clearing a space to guide us, right? Creating a space for us to receive, and also creating the space for us to expand where we're safe, where we're held, where we're nurtured. So you can imagine being in this orb of liquid light. And in this moment, I want you to call into this orb all of the things you want to receive, the experiences you want to have, the things you want to buy, the projects you want to start, the way you want to eat, all of the things you want to experience in your life that require resources. Call them into this space right now and feel that space expanding as you inhale. Allow it to expand just as your lungs expand. As you exhale, let it come in and contract, and imagine all of that coming into your body, filling you, healing you. Inhaling and expanding, exhaling and rooting deeper into your heart, into the earth, into source, into your body, into the earth, into your heart. And from there, the heart is the biggest electromagnetic field that we have. And so this is the most expansive, powerful place from which we can co-create from. So if it feels good to you, you can put your hand on your heart and give it some love, maybe a little massage or a tap, or just hold your heart there. Thank yourself for showing up and for sharing your dreams with you and for doing whatever it takes to co-create the life you want to live. And then take one more big breath, the biggest breath you've taken all day. Inhaling and exhale. You can let your hand float down, your eyes float open. Oh my God. Radiating,
Oh,
literally.
I hope everyone who's listening is as glad as I am to receive your medicine, Lobsterbird.
Yeah, so that's like the basis, right? Like that's where we need to start. We need
Yeah.
to really do this energetically. We really need to do this somatically. And so I would say, on the practical side of things as well, is
Hmm.
when we show up like this to whatever it is, right? Our work, our
Hmm.
bank account, our, our garden, whatever it is, right? Like that changes the thing itself. And so I
Hmm.
would say a root and wings in a very practical sense, not to belabor this, but y'all, sometimes you need reminders, is to
Yeah.
come connect with Adriana and I, and one, get a financial plan. Two,
Yes.
you're as lit up about this as we are. Come and join us. Like we need more people. We literally need, like a whole army of angels doing this work in the world right now. And how that roots is that, it roots you. Having a solid financial plan roots you, right? You remember you have a target, you know what you have to hit in order to meet your goals and dreams, right? It's really, really grounding in ways that most people I work with were like, I did not know it was going to be like,
Same, same.
right? Me
Yeah,
included.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
And also,
How I didn't know this
yeah, and
all these
also
years.
super expansion, right? Like, so
Mm-hmm.
sitting with someone, right? Sitting with someone who
Mm-hmm.
is totally present with you, who understands the process of healing, right? Is willing to
Mm.
walk you through this step by step by step until it's fully implemented. So, like, over years, we work with our clients, right?
Yes.
A lifelong relationship. And that is so expansive, right? Because we all need each other in this. If we're going to change the systems, we have to do it together, right? So don't go like thinking that those bruh financial advisors like on TikTok, right? Have your come get a real holistic trauma-informed financial plan and it
Please.
will root you and expand your possibilities and potential.
Thank you so much for this. Just the link is going to be below to get that financial plan for free. This is your time. Thank you for listening. Thank you, Lobsterbird.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.